In order to be successful in your ERP implementation journey, it's critical that you find the best ERP experts that are out there. But who are those best ERP experts and how do you identify them? That's what I want to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And when you're embarking on a digital transformation and you're selecting and implementing ERP software, it's very important that you have the right partner and that you find the best ERP experts to help you through the process. So what I want to talk about today are some of those criteria that you should be using to identify who those best experts might be and how to make sure that you're finding the best ERP consultants for your team and for your transformation initiative. So the first thing you want to consider, which is probably the most obvious one in our list here, is the ERP consulting firm that has the best skill sets for what you need. And there's a number of factors that come into play here. You certainly want to make sure that you have the right technical skills, depending on which technology you might be deploying. You also want to look at the functional skills and people that can understand the technology you're deploying. And you also want to look at some of the strategic and operational competencies that will be important for your ERP implementation. So for example, if you're a manufacturing organization or a supply chain intensive organization or a public sector organization, you want to make sure that you have people with the competencies to deploy technologies within those competencies and industries. Now, in addition to the more obvious software specific skill sets that you might be looking for, you also want to look for expertise in business process reengineering and organizational change management, solution architecture, some of those outlying areas that may seem like outlying areas, but they're actually critical to your digital transformation or ERP project. So you really want to make sure that when you're evaluating ERP experts, you're looking beyond just the technology itself, looking for some of those outlying and expansive areas that are going to be critical to your ERP implementation success. And it may be that you aren't relying on just one person or one consultant. It's obviously going to take a team of consultants that have that right skill set and competency to help you through the process. In addition to making sure that the individual consultants and experts that you have on your project are competent in the functional and technical aspects of your software implementation, you also want to make sure that they have the right methodologies and the tool sets, the repeatable processes that make them successful in their transformations for their clients. So you want to make sure that there are methodologies and tool sets that are being followed and that you're not getting the situation where you have consultants that are shooting from the hip. They're sort of taking the lone wolf approach to consulting, which there's a lot of consultants out there that are good at shooting from the hip and taking a lone wolf approach. You want to make sure that you have a repeatable and proven methodology that can help you through the process. Now, word of warning as it relates to this whole concept, though, is the fact that most system integrators and software vendors have their own methodologies and tool sets that they use that's specific to that software. But those methodologies and tool sets are typically very focused on deploying technology. And when you're going through an ERP implementation or any sort of digital transformation, it's not about just deploying technology, it's about process improvement, it's about organizational change, it's about strategic alignment, it's about architecture, data migration. There's a lot of different components that go into any sort of digital transformation or ERP project, so you want to make sure that the methodologies include those areas, or if the methodologies that you're leveraging from your consulting partners don't have those competencies, you want to make sure you find them or plug those gaps in some other way. So just as an example, if you're deploying SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, any of those leading software vendors out there, they each have their own branded methodology that's focused on deploying technologies. System integrators that support those products will use those same methodologies typically. So the key here is to figure out how can you take the best of those methodologies and fuse them with some other methodologies that focus on the business and organizational, operational, and strategic aspects of your overall transformation. The next thing you want to look at is how much experience does this consulting partner or this expert team have with going through a transformation like yours. And it's really easy to hone in and identify the resources that have experience with that specific technology that you might be deploying. That's certainly an important consideration, but you also want to know that they have experience with your industry, with organizations that are similar to yours, with other technologies or other systems that you might be bolting onto as part of your overall ERP implementation. You also want to make sure that your expert consulting team has experience with organizational change, business process improvement, data migration, system architecture, program management, governance, risk mitigation, all these different components of ERP implementations that are critical but oftentimes are not included in the typical ERP implementation methodologies. So when you're evaluating ERP experts, make sure you look at the competencies and expertise they have, as well as the methodologies and skill sets that we talked about earlier. The next thing you want to consider is how much does your ERP expert cost? And it's not just a matter of understanding how much they cost, but what kind of business value are they delivering? Now, there's obviously two components. There's the cost side, there's also the business benefits, which equates to an ROI or an overall business value or return on investment. And when you're evaluating potential ERP experts, you want to make sure that you're identifying consulting firms that aren't going to take too much time and money to go through the process. For example, if you work with a large system integrator like an Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, one of those really big consulting companies, their model is to staff young, new consultants on your project, and their model is to staff a lot of consultants on your project, arguably a lot more than you probably need if you had the right consultants on your project. So you want to make sure that you are right-sizing the cost of your consulting team, but you're also looking at the business value that they generate and the business value they deliver. So again, this gets back to the point that you're not just deploying technology, you're looking for a business solution that delivers measurable business benefits. So you want to make sure that the ERP experts that you identify and work with are the ones that are not only going to optimize costs, but also the ones that are going to optimize business benefits, people that have worked with organizations like yours in delivering real business value beyond just what the technology can do on its own, looking at things like process improvement, organizational change, et cetera. So looking at the overall cost benefit, the overall business value, the overall cost versus benefit, that's a critical part of evaluating your potential ERP experts. One of the biggest problems in the ERP implementation space is that consulting firms and software vendors have been following the same broken implementation processes now for decades. And this is proven by the fact that so many ERP implementations fail, and an overwhelming majority of implementations fail to deliver business value that's expected, and they fail to deliver on time and on budget. So you really have to ask yourself, am I hiring another consulting firm that's just going to do things the same way that's been done for the last several decades without really looking at new ways of doing things and more innovative ways of being successful? Those are the kinds of questions you need to ask and make sure that you have a consulting firm and ERP experts that are thought leaders in their space. They're innovative. They're looking at ways of improving the ways that implementations can and should be handled. And organizations such as Third Stage would be good considerations for that, looking at what types of thought leadership we provide, what type of innovation we provide in our consulting offering versus maybe other consulting firms that you might evaluate as well. So really look to think outside the box of the way things have always been, those typical players, those typical ERP so-called experts that have been in the space for so long, but they've led to the same failures that many organizations struggle from. You want to make sure that you're looking outside the box and thinking about other firms that might provide better value and a higher likelihood of success. Another very underrated and important aspect of ERP implementation success is making sure that you have advisors and experts on your side that are technology agnostic. And this is especially true if you're evaluating potential software solutions or defining your digital strategy and roadmap, but it's also equally important even if you're going through the implementation process or when you go through the implementation process. And the reason for this is you want to know that your advisors are looking out for your best interest, your business needs, and really are on your side. They're not there to sell you software. They're not there to force fit a square peg into a round hole. They're there to figure out where and how technology might enable process improvements. And they're also there to identify how your operations and your organization and your overall strategy might evolve and improve as a result of your transformation. So that technology agnostic view is extremely important because you don't want to end up with a bunch of shelfware, a bunch of technology that doesn't align with your business. You want to end up with an overall business solution that might include technology, but also includes organizational change, process improvement, strategic alignment, and other aspects of a successful ERP implementation. Another subtle but important consideration is how well potential ERP experts understand your business, not just your industry, but your business in particular. Who are you as an organization? How are you different? What are you trying to become when you grow up? What's your culture like? How are you trying to bend your culture? How are you trying to improve your business operations? How are you trying to execute your 3 to 5 year strategic plan? And being able to react or respond to whatever that situation may be so that you have a digital strategy, an ERP implementation plan, and an execution plan to ensure that you're being successful and you're doing so in a way that's unique to you. Now, one problem with the ERP implementation space is that most vendors and system integrators take more of a cookie cutter approach, or sort of a one-size-fits-all approach to how we deploy and implement technologies. But the reality is every organization is different. Every organization has a different risk profile. Every organization has a different culture. Every organization has a different operating model, even within the same industry. So you need a consulting partner that recognizes and understands who it is you are and what you're trying to become, and can respond accordingly to tailor-make a solution, a set of recommendations, and a plan that helps you get there. Last but not least, you want to look at cultural fit. How well does your ERP consulting team, your experts, how well do they fit within your organization? How well do they get along with your people? Are they arrogant and look down at your people? Can they understand and communicate with your team? Those are the sorts of questions you want to ask, and quite frankly, at the end of the day, you want an ERP consulting expert that understands your business and has all the competencies that we've talked about. But perhaps most importantly, you want to work with someone you know you like and that your people are going to like and they're going to be easy to work with. Now, this isn't to say that you need to find a consulting partner that's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. You certainly want that consulting partner, an expert that'll challenge you, that'll force you to be better, but you need someone that can do so in a way that fits your culture, fits your personality, and fits your organization as a whole. I've talked a lot about the reasons why you should choose an ERP expert or some of the criteria you should use, but it's also important to look at the criteria that I didn't mention that maybe aren't as important as you may think. So there are a number of reasons why you would not or should not evaluate an ERP expert. So for example, brand name, brand recognition. Oftentimes, organizations think that if they hire one of the big well-known brands or names in consulting, that they're guaranteed success. And what we found is actually you're probably more likely to fail and run into problems with some of these big providers because they, quite frankly, will take advantage of you and take a lot more time, money, and resources than is necessary for the business value that they generate. And I say that as someone that used to work for one of those firms, and that's part of why I started Third Stage Consulting, was to provide a different alternative for organizations. So you really want to look beyond the brand name and look to some of the substance we've talked about here in this video. The other thing I didn't mention here is deliverables. A lot of consulting firms take pride in their spectacular PowerPoint presentations. They put together magical, magnificent presentations that look great, and they're pieces of art. But the reality is you have to ask yourself, is this relevant to our business? Is this important to our business? Does it make us more successful in our transformation? Or is it just something that looks nice that we can show to our board and make us look like we know what we're doing? And the reality is, yes, you want deliverables to look good. You want people that can execute and deliver, but fancy PowerPoint presentations are not the answer, and that's not what creates the most value. And then finally, the thing that's probably most overrated in the whole evaluation of potential ERP experts is expertise in the particular technology you're deploying. So you may feel like that if you find an expert that knows whatever software you're trying to deploy, they know it really well, that's a surefire way to succeed. Well, that's really not true, and in fact, that's another overrated component of evaluating ERP experts. You need people that understand your technology, but you don't need the best experts in the technology you're deploying. You need people that understand the entire picture of technology, processes, and people, as well as strategy, project governance, risk mitigation, all those different pieces that are critical to overall ERP implementation success. Now, for more information and best practices on how to make your digital transformation successful, I encourage you to download some of the white papers and thought leadership I've included links to below. In particular is our annual digital transformation report. This is a report of best practices and benchmarks of what other organizations are experiencing and what some of our lessons from our client experience is. And that's just one example of some of the thought leadership you can download by clicking on the links below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day.